spells that we have had. Who had ever heard of the vortex in New York, right, before that weird weather? The incredible heat that Australia has suffered, the floods in the UK, and you name it, it goes on and on and on and on. There's no country that has been exempted. These very strange extreme weather events are going to continue, both in their frequency and in their severity. It's not that climate change is going to be here in the future. We are experiencing climate change.
This Arctic blast could see America reach its coldest temperatures in decades. Millions of people across a huge swathe of the country are being advised to hunker down while the so-called polar vortex does its worst. Minnesota could be hardest hit, with wind chills set to make it feel like an astonishing -50°C. The polar plunge has struck unusually far south. In Oklahoma, the rotating pool of freezing air is producing rarely seen temperatures.
The inside of the New York to Washington, D.C. train iced up.
Try opening the window in Chicago and you'll get this. 35 below zero right in your living room. It's so cold, Lake Michigan looks more like a hot tub. The water outside Chicago warmer than the frigid air, and ice already forming along the banks.
Images of water turning to ice before it reaches the bottom. Parts of Niagara Falls have become frozen.
South as Texas and here in Elk City, Oklahoma, heavy snow is falling. This is unusual even for winter.
This weather combination that we're seeing right now with all of the snow and the cold is unlike anything that we've seen in decades. And I can't emphasize that enough. The cold really scares me. And as such that we will have temperatures that are potentially deadly or certainly life-altering temperatures.
Hundreds of flights continue to be cancelled, leaving passengers stranded. While on the coast, not far away, seawater, which flooded some communities during the storms, has now frozen over, marooning people there too.
Severe, pervasive and irreversible, words used in a new UN report about the likely impact of global warming. Amid extreme weather worldwide, experts say the health, economic prospects and food and water sources of billions of people are at stake. It's everything from droughts to rising sea levels.
We're not in an era where climate change is some kind of a future hypothetical. We live in a world where impacts of climate change are widespread and consequential. We see impacts from the equators to the poles and from the coast to the mountains. There's no question that we live in a world that's already altered by climate change.
Powerful waves have continued to pound Europe's Atlantic coastline. 2 people are now feared dead in the French holiday resort of Biarritz after they were swept out to sea. The town's famous promenade was battered during the night, leaving many businesses to pick up the pieces on Tuesday morning. The surge wasn't isolated to France. A large stretch of Europe's Atlantic coastline was hit by high tides, including Portugal and the Spanish region of Galicia. At least 1 person is now known to have died in Spain, with 2 others still unaccounted for. In Portugal, this amateur footage showed one man's desperate attempt to save his car, just managing to escape in the nick of time. Elsewhere, near the capital Lisbon, the swell was so bad, huge pools of foam like this started washing up along the shore.
Time to go. An earthquake of around 7 magnitude has struck China's far western region of Xinjiang.
The earthquake that shook central New Zealand, including the capital, Wellington. The minute-long 6.3 magnitude rolling.
Thousands of residents woke with a bang this morning after a series of earthquakes rocked the state. Many have told of their fear and confusion as the shockwaves rumbled through the suburbs.
Tremors and shakes were felt right across Metro Adelaide.
We have very few this close to Adelaide that are of this magnitude, so it is more unusual.
South Carolina and Georgia got a bit of a shake last night. An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 4.1 shook homes and rattled residents' nerves.
It's the second largest earthquake to ever hit the state.
A 6.9 earthquake hitting off the coast of Eureka.
Already 4 aftershocks.
Chile has ordered an evacuation of parts of its northern coast following an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.0 jolted an area 35 kilometers north.
Whoa! Oh. Earthquake.
Big earthquake right now.
Big earthquake. That's
a really strong shaker right now.
Very big.
I still feel it. Are you still feeling it?
Yeah.
Steady
it's
shaking
still
there.
shaking.
My hands are shaking.
A 4.4 magnitude earthquake has shaken Los Angeles. This is the second quake to hit the state in a week. This is the strongest quake to hit the city since the last aftershocks of the 1994 Northbridge quake. The United States Geological Survey said there could be a 5% chance of another strong quake within the next 3 days. Local residents in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick woke up to a bit of a surprise when a giant fireball illuminated Canada's skies early on Tuesday morning. CCTV captured the incredible moment when a bright burst of light lit up the sky. The fireball, which is thought to be a meteorite, could also be seen from Nova Scotia, where eyewitnesses said they saw bright lights in the sky and heard a loud noise like thunder at around 5 a.m. local time.
Alpha 6412, where do you want it?
Not real often.
There's like a mudslide and everything's gone. The houses are gone.
Are there any injuries?
Yes, there's people yelling for help.
A desperate call to the emergency services as a deadly tide of mud and rock crushed everything in its path. Houses were swept off their foundations, trees keeled over, and people were sucked into the sea of mud like quicksand.
24 people are confirmed dead and 170 others are still missing. It's believed a small earthquake may have triggered the tragedy.
It's like a war zone up there. People finding children, people finding babies.
And while the task of finding bodies is already so grim, some have had the even more unimaginable trauma of finding only partial remains.
The slide hit with such force that oftentimes the rescuers are not recovering full.
Now this is going to be part 2 in the cloud painting. Now this painting is going to be, as you can see, it's going to be a demon, and I say demon because I see evil here, quite frankly. A demon in white face, you know, obviously being that it's from under. Black face here being considered racist, white face down there being racist, right? So it goes to figure with the wings. Here's the wings and the body riding the little sled, see? Or like, I don't know, some sort of, maybe a eagle maybe. And then there's something else back here with wings, and you can see it. And there's another little guy flapping, looking kind of towards him right there. You can see it right there. So that's another one. You can see it's sliding across. That's the north face. I'm going to call that the north face sled. Sled sliding demon.
Planet X. Mainstream media news networks all have the same third rail policy. No way, no how will they ever honestly report any Planet X system observations whatsoever. That being said, this policy, like any other, is subject to the occasional fluke. In other words, it's Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will, and in the case of NBC News, their affiliate in Sacramento, California, KCRA, was that fluke. in a live pre-dawn telecast on or about January 14, 2014, the morning news anchors of this NBC News affiliate, KCRA in Sacramento, California, aired live video from their own news helicopter. In it, they reported an observation of a planet they could not explain. Let's briefly view that broadcast.
We are back.
Stargazing.
It is a celestial rock.
Awakening.
In space, if you will. Dirk, Dirk, what is it? We're all like, it's a planet? Is it the moon?
Actually,
what is it?
we've been searching, trying to find you in the newsroom because we know you
Ask
know.
Dirk, what is it?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Is it the moon? I don't know. You'd have to back up. I'd have to be outside to really see, but that looks like a point of light. And if it's close to the sun, where the sun's coming up, then more than likely that's... I can't believe that we could see Venus that close.
But it is a planet, right? Because it's not twinkling, or is that a myth?
No, I would say that that's a planet, yeah, but
It's Saturn.
It's hard.
Okay, Tamara wants in on this one. She's been Googling.
No, that can't be Saturn unless
It can't
there's an
be.
eclipse going on. No, because you don't see Saturn with a chunk taken out of it.
Maybe that's the
you only
lens
see
on.
you only see the moon that have a chunk like that, and the only other planet that I know of that you see a chunk taken out of it like that would be Venus. Because it's on the inside planet. Saturn and Jupiter, they're all outside planets from
And this,
Earth,
friends,
so
is
you
what
wouldn't
it's
see
like
that.
when you stop by the weather department at any moment.
Right,
These
yeah.
are the kinds of conversations that you will stumble into.
I need to go outside and see it so I can be sure
Let's just send you
what
up
I'm
in
looking
the
at.
chopper so you can investigate properly. How
Oh,
about
I'd
that?
love to. That would be great.
Yeah, go up into the
Ship 'em
KCRA
up.
Observatory and get back to us. Thank you, Dirk.
All right.
Okay.
What our analysis will show is that the KCRA morning news anchors observed two planets via their live news helicopter feed, specifically the planet Venus eclipsing the planet Nibiru. After seeing our findings, you, the viewer, can then decide for yourself. Is NBC News the first mainstream television network to unwillingly air a Nibiru report? Then we'll present our analysis of this new report, and finally we'll close with KCRA's response to our request for basic information about the broadcast. What is important to remember about this live, pre-dawn KCRA report is that it was aired live. What you see is a real-time feed from a news helicopter after takeoff in the early morning, well before sunrise. To illustrate the key points, let's review a series of video frames taken from this news report. Here you see that the cameraman is imaging an object in the sky and it is fairly round. Looking closer at the object of interest, we see that the camera is zoomed to such a wide setting that it's difficult for the camera to give us accurate details. However, with a color shift analysis, we do see patterns that are consistent with natural objects. It is important to note that when camera operators spot something of interest, they'll focus in on it, which is what we see here, now that the cameraman has zoomed in to a medium setting. Then, with a closer look at the object of interest, we see a deformation at the 2 o'clock position, especially when we study just the outline. Moving on, in this image we see that the cameraman is fully zoomed in to a very tight setting. At this point, the question is, are we seeing a lens aberration? With this in mind, remember that these images are being captured from a moving helicopter, so what we do see is natural movement, absent any evidence of a lens aberration. Further evidence of this is the crossfade from the camera feed to the production studio at KCRA. Here we can still see this image in the crossfade. So what exactly are we looking at? 2 planets. The first is Venus, in which we see the nighttime side of the planet as it eclipses the planet Nibiru, in which we see the daylight side of that planet. To help you understand how we drew this conclusion, let's begin with this planetary alignment for January 14, 2014, as depicted by the Solar System Scope program. On that day, the Moon is behind Earth, so we know that it is impossible to say that one of these 2 objects could be the Moon. Likewise, given the alignment of Mercury and its relative size, we can rule out that planet as well, which brings us to Venus. On this day, it was in an inferior conjunction directly between the Earth and the Sun. This is why Venus appears as a black disk as it eclipses Nibiru. To help put this in perspective, let's use this simple illustration of the phases of Venus. Here we see it on January 14, 2014. Because the Sun is directly behind it, what is presented to us on Earth is the night side of Venus. Conversely, were Venus in a superior conjunction on the opposite side of the Sun, we would see its full day side. This brings us to the question, where exactly was Venus in relationship to the Sun during this pre-dawn live helicopter video feed aired on January 14, 2014? Here we see that precise alignment with the Starry Night program. Please note the white line running across the bottom third of the screen. This represents the horizon as it was seen from Sacramento on that day. And here you see that the Sun was below the horizon at that time. However, Venus, which is directly above the Sun that day, was above the horizon. So now let's assemble the various alignments we have into a complete picture. The key to this is that Venus was directly in front of Earth in an inferior conjunction. As you can see by the illustration here, what we saw of Venus was its night side. To further illustrate the point, let's use this photograph of Venus transiting the Sun. It is a black dot, and the commercial jet also captured in this photograph is equally black. This is consistent with the Sun being below the horizon and Venus being directly above it, and the horizon as well. Ergo, Venus was accurately videographed in this live pre-dawn KCRA news broadcast. This brings us to the final question of the analysis. Was Venus eclipsing Nibiru as our analysis shows? In this KCRA broadcast, 2 planets were imaged. To understand why one is dark and one is bright, let's quickly review what we learned about the phases of Venus, which applies to any other planet in our solar system. When the planet is directly in front of the Sun, before us, we see its night side. And when it is directly behind our Sun, before us, we see its day side. This was the case on January 14, 2014, where Venus is directly in front of the Sun and Nibiru is directly behind it. But is it really Nibiru? And if it is, would it be possible to find corroborating images? On both accounts, yes. When we look at the field of view from Sacramento when that live camera feed was broadcast, the constellation Aquila was above and to the left of the Sun, Venus, and Nibiru. This is consistent with what we have reported in previous videos during this same relative span of time. Here we see an image by Richard Bolerup taken on December 13, 2013 in support of his own naked eye observation, which places Nibiru in the same region of the sky as a published observation by the 00 Skyview team on October 21, 2013. Note where the constellation Aquila appears in this region of the sky. Here we have another image of Nibiru captured by the Turrialba webcam on January 2013, 2014, which places Nibiru in the same region of the sky as Richard Bolerup's observation on December 13, 2013. And here, approximately, is where it appears when we add it to the previous two observations. Once again, note its relationship to the constellation Aquila. Here we have a subsequent image in support of another naked eye observation of Nibiru by Richard Bolerup on January 8, 2014, again in the same region of the sky. We therefore concluded that we have evidence of a clear pattern. But to make this even more complete, we also offer another image of Nibiru captured by the Turrialba webcam on February 12, 2014, which again places Nibiru in the same region of the sky. Taken all together, what we have are reliable observations of Nibiru by three different sources in the same region of the sky. And once again, we see the constellation Aquila, which is also what we saw earlier in our analysis of the KCRA observation report. So, do the dots connect? Here we see an approximate pre-dawn position for Nibiru as it was observed by the live feed from the KCRA news helicopter. Therefore, what we now have are reliable observations from 4 different sources for the same exact object, the planet Nibiru. With this in mind, let's look at that KCRA broadcast once again, so that you, the viewer, can compare our findings with what you now observe in this live broadcast recording.
We are back.
Stargazing.
It is a celestial rock.
Awakening.
In space, if you will. Dirk, what is it? We're all like, it's a planet? Is it the moon?
Actually,
what is it?
we've been searching, trying to find you in the newsroom because we know you know.
Ask Dirk, what is it?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Is it the moon? I don't know. You'd have to back up. I'd have to be outside to really see, but that looks like a point of light. And if it's close to the sun, where the sun's coming up, then more than likely that's... I can't believe that we could see Venus that close.
But it is a planet, right? Because it's not twinkling, or is that a myth?
No, I would say that that's a planet, yeah, but
it's Saturn.
It's hard.
Okay, Tamara wants in on this one. She's been Googling.
No, that can't be Saturn unless there's an eclipse going on. No, because you don't see Saturn with a chunk taken out of it.
Maybe that's
you only see the moon that have a chunk like that, and the only other planet that I know of that you see a chunk taken out of it like that would be Venus. Because it's on the inside planet. Saturn and Jupiter, they're all outside planets from
And this,
Earth,
friends,
so
is what it's like when you stop by the weather department at any moment.
Right.
These are the kinds of conversations that you will stumble into.
I need to go outside and see it so I can be sure what I'm looking at.
Let's just send you up in the chopper so you can investigate properly.
Oh, I'd love to. That would be great.
Yeah, go up into the KCRA observatory and get back to us. Thank you, Dirk.
All right.
Okay.
In order to produce the most accurate analysis, I contacted Jim Stimson, the Assistant News Director for KCRA Sacramento, for additional information on February 2013-2015.